In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, hello and a very warm welcome.
Well, joining me live from Jerusalem is Israeli Defense Force spokesperson Avital Leibovich. To continue this operation, a quote that you're going to expand this operation, which presumably means a ground invasion. Already we've heard from the UK that you would lose sympathy and support for your cause if you did that. Is that any concern?
Ground operation is only one option. We have many options in addition to that. Currently, there is no such decision to launch a ground operation, but if there will be one, we are ready and deployed for action.
And what's the aim of this ground invasion, bearing in mind you did do a ground invasion 4 years ago, and where has that led us to?
Well, 4 years ago, it was a totally different situation. 4 years ago, Hamas didn't have Fajr 5 Iranian-manufactured rockets that can hit all the way to the city of Tel Aviv. 4 years ago, Hamas didn't have the drone capabilities, drones that can be manned with explosives and then explode themselves in the Israeli skies. This is a whole different situation. We will do whatever we need to do, ground or air, in order to protect half of this country's population. Because naturally, Israel, just like any other country in the world, has the basic right of self-defense.
Your Interior Ministry says that one of the aims is to send the region, Gaza, back to the Middle Ages, which really implies you're targeting an entire people there. What's the message behind that statement?
I'm not a spokesperson for the Minister of Interior. I'm a spokesperson from the IDF. And one of the goals of the IDF here is to cripple the capabilities of the different organizations in Gaza, cripple them of their huge arsenals, an arsenal that they built for years and years. They smuggled weapons through hundreds of tunnels, and Gaza has served in the last couple of years as the backyard of many deserts in Africa, making it a lot more convenient to smuggle weapons inside the country.
You're not a spokesman for the Interior Ministry, but perhaps you could at least give us some sort of idea what they're implying here. You must be on the same message board with them, aren't you, in effect, having the same message? What do they mean by that? Returning to the Middle Ages?
Once again, I'm not a spokesperson for that ministry. The goal of this operation, Pillar of Defense, is divided to two. The first part is to defend the Israeli population, 3.5 million Israelis under current rocket danger for the past decade. The second part is to make sure these terror organizations are getting a very severe blow for their arsenals, for the huge amounts of rockets, launchers, launching sites, so we can live peacefully and quietly, just like any other country in the world.
You make a very persuasive argument, but of course what the international community is really concerned about now is the increasing number of civilian deaths. Now, last night I spoke with one of your colleagues, Josh Hampman. He claimed that Hamas is actually rounding up civilians to shield targets you're about to bomb. Now, how can Hamas possibly know your exact targets and respond quickly enough?
Hamas is targeting only Israeli cities. You are more than welcome to spend just 2 hours in one of the biggest Israeli cities that were targeted for the past years, either Beersheva or Ashkelon and Ashdod. Each of these cities have more than 200,000 people. Did you ever feel what it's like to run into a shelter and have 15 seconds to do it, or to raise children and a family inside a shelter, a protected room, and sleep there night after night? This is not something normal. This should not be this way.
Well, of course, we can ask the Gazans the same question, of course. But in the meantime, thank you very much indeed for joining.
I beg to differ, because you can't make this equation. Hamas is targeting civilians. We are not looking to target civilians. We are targeting terrorists. So
and why is it? So can I ask you then, the core reason why this is happening is because of Israeli policy towards the Gazans, the way they've been suffering from this blockade. That has been the provocation, hasn't it?
About occupation. The form of occupation of Gaza is different. It's not with Israeli soldiers on the ground. The soldiers and settlers pulled out in 2005. But when international law says very clearly that occupation is defined by having control of a territory from outside, from a government outside, that's precisely what we have in Gaza. It takes the form of a siege in which Israeli military controls the borders, determines who can go in, who can come out, what goods can go in or out, controls the seas surrounding Gaza, built a wall completely enclosing Gaza, controls the borders, controls the airspace, bombed the airport so no planes can land, prevents Gaza fishermen from going out more than 1 mile out to sea. This is occupation of a different form. And until we understand that that's the root of this level of violence that we're seeing, we're not going to be in any position to end it. The first thing that has to happen, of course, is a call for an immediate ceasefire on both sides. But until we understand it in the context of occupation, that's not going to last.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Phyllis. We'll certainly be tracking this story.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.
In the provocation, hasn't it?
What blockade? There is a border to Egypt, the Rafah border. It's open. Do you know that every day we allow patients from Gaza to get hospitalization in Israel despite the rocket fire? Do you know that we supply electricity to Gaza? We supply truckloads with supplies every day. Even today, as a matter of fact, more than 130 trucks entered Gaza with a variety of supplies according to the request, despite of the rocket fire. What other country in the world would act this way?